Awesome. Thank you so much, and great to have all the amazing entrepreneurs in the room. Honored to be around female entrepreneurs. I spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs, and the room generally looks very testosterone filled, if you know what I mean. So you're often one of the only few in the room, so this is really amazing just to be part of. I wanted to, literally, I'm up for a couple of minutes. I really want to, as a person who's worked in corporate, a person who's started my own business, and as a person who's worked in small business development, I really am passionate about this topic, just because I think there's so much potential and so many things we don't get right as an ecosystem in SMME space in South Africa, let alone on the continent. And I loved what you said earlier about the panel, about it being a masterclass. And I think even this, I'm going to try give a bit of a summary on some of the stuff that we've touched on earlier and give advice. This is from a sister to another sister on things not to do and some things that you need to look out for as you grow your business. And I really hope that it will be useful, helpful, and I know we're pressed for time today, but I'd really ask that people connect on social media platforms and the rest and kind of keep the conversation going. So I'm going to start right there. And I think one of the things we often forget when we talk about female entrepreneurs, there's not a lot of us, who are profiled and kind of covered and successful as they should be. But reading a lot of kind of general studies, there's some hard lessons for a lot of female entrepreneurs. There are literally global studies and local studies that literally speak about how women, unfortunately, don't get a lot of funding, right? In general, there's stats around less than 5% of all venture capital funding goes to people of color, let alone what goes to women. We won't go there. And also, there's also a flip side of that, which is a lot of times, and this one's a difficult one to hear, but like I said, a sister to a sister, women often pick to start businesses in sectors or value chains that are not scaling and are not growing. We often choose to be active in sectors where the growth is not. And what I mean by that is, if you are in a sector where the growth is doing this, oftentimes it's really hard to screw it up. If you're in a sector where the growth is doing this, it's really hard to be successful despite the odds. And it's just one of those things that I think we need to be honest about. And the other flip side of that is when you see women in growth sectors, they do incredibly well, often better than their male counterparts, from an economic growth perspective, a turnover perspective, and from a job creation perspective. So sometimes we're making some decisions that disadvantage us, and sometimes we're putting ourselves in contexts that disadvantage us. And I think it's important for us to often reflect on those, very importantly. So without further ado, I think for me, number one, I hate the word SMMEs. Like, let's put it out there, I hate it. I hate it because small, medium, micro-sized enterprises, there's so much going on in that one term of SMME, right? It includes my auntie selling vegetables at the corner, and it includes the guy running the AI company that is scaling globally in agriculture. I hate it, because oftentimes in the ecosystem, we think that a one solution fits all. And I think even as entrepreneurs, we think we're all the same entrepreneur, looking for the same funding, looking for the same support, and we're not. So that's my first disclaimer, I hate it. But also, the end goal is different. Not every entrepreneur is building a business that they plan to sell. There are those entrepreneurs who says, I've got 5 years, in 5 years I'm gonna build a business that grows 10 times what it was, and then I'm gonna sell, I'm gonna make my money, and I'm out. There's another entrepreneur who says, I'm starting a business, I'm going to create jobs, I'm going to scale this business, and one day this business is going to be the next corporate, right? Then there's someone else who says, I'm starting this business to survive. It sounds terrible, but it's reality in South Africa. I'm starting a survivalist business. And if it can pay for the bills and feed my dependents, this is a damn successful business. And there are people where they do that for their families and build incredible family businesses that are super rich and super well off, and they are fulfilled. If you as an entrepreneur are not clear on what type of business you are and what type of entrepreneur you're looking to be, I strongly suggest you get that clarity. Otherwise, in the ecosystem of SMME development, you will go on a ride. People will decide for you what your business is supposed to be, and people will decide for you what type of entrepreneur you need to be. Then my biggest problem is not enough of us think big enough. We don't. Like, there's a lady who said you're in wine, right? And I love that. Like, I love wine, yes, but I also love the fact that there's women in wine. And oftentimes I'll meet people at like expos or entrepreneurs at expos, and I'm like, so what's the game? Oh no, if I'm at the exhibit, it's fine. If I sell a couple of bottles, it's fine. I'm like, do you know that right now in China, as an example, they cannot import enough wine or find enough South African wine producers to meet the demand in China for wine? And we're chilling like, oh, it's okay if I sell a couple of cases, right? So my big thing firstly is to challenge you. Build something that can and will scale. Yes, don't despise small beginnings, but please have a game plan for where you want to scale to and chase it unapologetically. I mean, you've already decided to be an entrepreneur, which means you're not sane, to be honest. You're not. There are easier ways to make money with less headaches and gray hairs. I mean, I was hearing your story earlier. There are easier ways to make money. Often you guys are intelligent, smart, have skills. Some of you have left corporate to start businesses. You are already not well, okay? Let's make it count by building a business that will scale and outlive us from a legacy perspective, right? If you're going to build a business that will scale, that means you're not fiddling. If you're building a business that's going to scale, that means you are very intentional in the things that work. I know we don't like making things seem like they're a formula, but there are formulas of what works and what doesn't. And if you want to learn the school fees yourself, go ahead, it's expensive. Or how do you capitalize on the lessons that are already out there? Some of the things linked to growth for me is what I said earlier. Please pick a high growth market. If the market you're in or you're seeing is literally declining by 20% every year, globally, let alone locally, really think hard about where in that value chain you are. Sometimes there's another part of the value chain that's growing, but it's tough, because I mean, even the lady who presented from Proudly SA was talking about value chains that are being destroyed, okay? I know you back yourself as a superhero, as an entrepreneur, but some trends are really hard to buck and go against. So pick a place where there is high market demand and there's a large growing market of customers, so that you're not searching for customers or after you've hit success, there's no more success to find. The other is make sure that you can drive easy and rapid user adoption. I always ask this of entrepreneurs to say, how hard or how long did it take for you to acquire that one customer? How hard and how long did it take for you to acquire the next customer? If the amount of time it's taking you to acquire customers is taking a while, scale is going to be something that is challenging. If you're telling me you're spending, and listen, in the B2B space, if you sell B2B, as I heard some of the complaints, God give you strength, okay? It takes a while, but have a couple of horses in the race. But if you're selling direct to consumer, which is also hard, but if it's taking you tons of money, so know your numbers, what's your cost of customer acquisition? If it's taking you tons of money and tons of time to acquire a customer, something is not working. Something is not scalable. You need to make sure you're able to acquire customers quickly and know what that magic formula is in your business. The other is make sure that you've got scalable infrastructure. I'm a big fan of technology, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But make sure that the stuff in the resources in your business that you've got working can scale. I sometimes find entrepreneurs saying, we always joke about, oh, just build it on a spreadsheet. Build it on a spreadsheet. Let's talk about invoicing. I've seen this before. I've done this before. You've got the template to invoice on a spreadsheet. All good and well when you're only doing 5 invoices a day. Do you believe you're going to scale? Because you're not acting like a person who believes that they're going to scale. If you believe that you are going to scale, you would have a solution that means that it can churn out 50,000 invoices in a day, right? And I'm not saying do it from day one, but I'm saying from day one have a plan for how your infrastructure is going to be scalable and know when it's time to make that transition. The worst thing we see with businesses is you'll say, this business is in the old mutual value chain. Awesome, then the supplier network. We want to reward this business by giving them more business. And the business falls over because they were never ready for scale. And actually, we've killed that business when we thought that we were helping the business by moving them from 10 to 50 million rand in turnover. Be ready, okay? Have a plan for scale. The other piece for me is around if you're going to be a scalable business, so be in a place of growth. Second thing is be a scalable business. If you're going to be a scalable business, know your unit economics. Pricing, guys, my gosh, pricing. I've seen some pricing that makes my eyes water because I'm like, okay, you currently don't pay tax. I'm glad for you. What happens when you start paying tax? Because you haven't included it in your pricing, okay? Or you assume that your time is free. So people don't include in their unit economics the amount of time that the founder has spent working on producing that product or service. And they believe that when they scale to 50,000 products, they're still going to have enough time to do for free to produce the product or service. Then one day they realized maybe I'm going to die if I produce all 50,000 products, and I now need to hire someone, but I never priced in the time of the person to do the work, right? So your price was amazing. Everybody loves your product, but your price was actually stupid, to be blunt. It was not realistic, right? And now you've got to increase prices, lose customers, or run at a loss. So you're scaling, everyone's celebrating. Oh my gosh, you've grown 5 times, 5x. And you're like, yo, the bank balance doesn't show. I'm running at a loss because my unit economics were a mess. If I ask you right now, what's the cost price of your product? What's the margin on your product? If you don't know those answers, you need to seriously sit down and figure it out. Okay? And accountants, I know, like, I studied actuarial science. We don't have great relationships with accountants, but they have a really strong use in moments like this. Trust me, okay? Learned the hard way. The other piece is make sure that you've got a business model that can replicate. So let's say I'm going to dominate, I don't know, South Africa, and I'm going to win South Africa. Once I'm done with South Africa, what's my plan? Have I built my business in a way that I can copy and paste it into the next market or the next region? Like I said, I'm not here for building small businesses. I'm challenging you to dream bigger, even if that's not the reality on day one. But think intentionally in how you build the business so that it is scalable. How easy would it be to replicate your business? Omar was talking about you're in 2 stores and you want more spa stores. Love it. If that lady came back tomorrow and said, okay, Ma, here's 50. Are we ready? Love it, right? So make sure you're ready, because oftentimes we think things are going to happen on our timeline and they don't. But when they happen, make sure it's a blessing, not a curse. More businesses die because the opportunity presented itself and they weren't ready. When you come to Masisizane and you say, Thabo, I need 50 million. Number one, make sure you need 50 million. I often find people ask for less money than they need because they haven't done their numbers. And then Thabo says, sure, here's 50 million. Now you just don't know what to do with it. You didn't have a plan. You didn't do the numbers properly. You just thought 50 million was a nice number. You didn't think anyone would give you 50 million. What's wrong with them, right? Have a plan. Can you replicate your business model? The last bit is technology. And it goes back to what I was saying around, if you're in an industry that's growing 20% year on year, it's really hard to stuff it up. Betting against technology in 2024 is dangerous in your business model. You want to take the risk? Good luck to you. My money is better off on the lotto than your business. If you're going to bet against technology, make sure that you're using technology to automate stuff and actually reduce costs. We're talking about even local versus international. A lot of international competitors you're up against are using technology to drive down their unit economics. If you think having 15 administrators doing capturing for you is going to result in unit economics that are competitive, you have a serious thing coming your way, right? So if we're positioning ourselves to grow, how do we do that? Like I said, betting against technology is a problem. I know entrepreneurs read a lot. Some books for entrepreneurs are not helpful, but some are. If specifically you're focused on trying to understand what type of businesses are more successful through leveraging technology than their competitors, this is a book I strongly recommend and is an easy one to take in. And when I talk about embracing technology and betting against technology and how dangerous it is, that graph shows like how quickly technology is progressing, right? And it gets very busy towards the end, as you can see, whereas very little was happening in like 20 years, 40 years before. And I always say to people when they say they're afraid of technology and they'll figure it out next year, they'll figure it out tomorrow, I'm like, okay, sharp, but you do realize that tomorrow the technology will be more complicated. So if I'm like, no, I'm fine on the Nokia 3310, I'll just get the iPhone 16 when it comes out in September. Shem, you have a proper learning curve, right? And I always say with technology, today is the slowest and simplest that it will ever be. Tomorrow it will be more complicated. If you're saying, oh, AI, I'm scared, I'll figure it out next year, Shem, even the people who are experts in AI today will be figuring it out next year with you. But at least they have a basis to start from, right? And I think it's dangerous when we build businesses, and I don't mean this just for tech businesses, because that's what people think I'm saying. I have seen manufacturing companies, creative arts companies, recycling businesses use technology in their value chain and beat out their competition. I'm saying any industry. Tell me you make toilet paper, and I can probably sit down and tell you where you should be using technology in your full value chain of producing toilet paper. Name any business. You can't bet against technology. And if you think there'll be a time where you'll embrace it later, read the book. It's fascinating. The reality why we can't bet against technology is because there are just things that technology is better at doing than us. Do you know what those are? I used to run a business that did small business consulting, and effectively we had small businesses signing up on our platform asking for specific bits of help or implementation projects as we called them. And initially I had a human obviously, who was capturing the sign-ups and following up on the request and converting that into a business card and then getting quotes. And then I was like, actually, there are 3 bits of technology we implemented off the shelf on free packages of software. We implemented MailChimp and implemented a journey for people signing up on the platform. We implemented Calendly for you to automatically self-service set up a call with your consultant. And we implemented, I'm trying to remember what the third one was, an automated interface between Typeface and Google Forms to keep a database and an algorithm in the back to match the person who had the skill set to the SME that needed the business. I didn't need the lady anymore. But what it did mean is that I didn't need 5 ladies as we scaled. There are certain things technology is better at. I always say we're all scared about technology. I'm excited about technology because if technology can do the cuck stuff on the left, the repetitive, boring stuff in my business like managing sign-ups, then I can focus more of my time on the interesting stuff that actually creates value in my business around relationship management, sales, business development, storytelling, brand development, instead of the entrepreneur sitting behind a spreadsheet trying to balance the books when there's literally a technology I can get today that can automate that for me. Right? So think about it. What are the core services you provide your customers? What competency does that core service require? Is it the best use of your time? One of the things I found the most liberating as an entrepreneur was to know my hourly rate. I won't say it out loud. But knowing my hourly rate was liberating because when something came up and I needed to do it, I thought to myself, is this worth this much? And if the answer was no, the answer was delegated or automated and keep it moving. Right? Role of technology in your business. Product and efficiency, productivity, key. Access to new markets. We're talking about tech a lot. Access to new markets, hello. Including their competitor / Amazon that's also allowing you to access new markets, just saying. But we obviously love the homegrown ones. Data-driven decision-making and automations. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, that means you can tell technology to do it for you and automate it. And you don't have to do it anymore. Right? Customer experience and engagement. How many of you have customers complaining about inconsistent experiences? Oh, I spoke to Tumi, and your Tumi was so rude to me. Like, how about you don't speak to Tumi? How about there's a WhatsApp chatbot that answers the basic questions that we know 80% of our customers ask 80% of the time? And you're only speaking to Tumi if it's really higher grade and requires a human, and then I need to make sure Tumi's having a good day, right? Then let's talk about support. We all want funding, we all want support. And I want to be clear around this because not all funding is created equal. Not all funders are the ones for your business. I'm not taking the view from a funder perspective, I want to take the view from an entrepreneur perspective. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we pawn ourselves out to the highest bidder for funding. Literally. First thing I'll say is the best funding is sales. You owe nobody nothing. The best funding is sales and revenue and turnover in your business. That's the best funding. Nothing beats that. But if you absolutely need funding, then be very clear on where the funding's coming from. I show this journey because I don't think we talk about it enough, and happy to share these slides, so please don't go through the pages and pages of the notes. The bubble starts at the bottom, and it goes to the top right. Normally, the size of the funding or the size of the bubble increases. The amount of skin in the game and how much the funder has on you also normally increases as we go up, right? At the bottom, we always talk about friends, family, fools. I mean, self-explanatory. They just believe in you, you know? They don't even know anything about the business, but they'll put money in. You are the number one, friends, family, and fool. You can pick which one you are, right? You're putting money into your business. Then the next one is grants, subsidies, DFIs, or development finance institutions. Masisizane doing preferential rates on lending is an example. Going to IDCs and SIFAs is an example. Hopefully they're doing what they need to be doing as well. Those are good examples. Normally, they're willing to take more risk, and they've got funding to make that available, and they're not going to ask you for crazy return. Next level is angel investors, rich friends, or rich people who believe and back your idea, but they still want return because they want to stay rich. Let's be clear. They're not friends, family, and fools. They are angel investors and they still want their money, right? So they buy equity in your business and they will actually expect at some point to get the money out, but they're not going to be as hectic as the banks, right? Then crowdfunding. I think we're all familiar with that. Crowdfunding, you're getting money from your end customer. You're saying, I have this dream, I'm going to build this product, but in order to build it, I need money. Don't you all want to put money to help me build the product? Then you'll get the product. That's really, like it's an advance, like a salary advance almost from your customers, right? Venture capital is very much, we buy equity in your business, we'll often focus on technology business, and we want high growth. Because as a venture capitalist, I want to put money in. Within a 5 to 10 year period, I want to exit and be able to say I made 10 times the money I put in. It's a high-risk business. They always say you can invest in 10 businesses, 1 will make your return, and 9 of them will fail. That's just the mathematics, right? They also buy equity in your business. They own part of your business. Traditional banks as well as private equity, it often is we don't necessarily get equity in your business. Want to see security, want to see revenue. We want to know that you're going to be able to pay it back. And listen, if you don't pay it back, we're coming after your house or your car or something. Okay? Private equity is a lot of, like Ster-Kinekor is an example of a private equity funded business. They're massive. The amount of money they need is a lot, but they're not listed on the JSE. So instead of going to the JSE to raise capital, they raise it from private equity players. Where does your funding need sit? How much skin in the game are you willing to give, and what's the size of the funding you need? I often see people knocking on the door of venture capital fund when they've not even got grant subsidies and DFIs. And I'm just like, why would you walk away from free money and come to me, who's going to be like a vulture for 10 times multiple return? Be clear on which doors you're knocking on for money. Don't let the funder decide for you. And if you're trying to knock on all these doors, you'll never run a business because that'll keep you busy for a while. Then when we talk about there's no money, maybe controversial, I don't think we have a money problem in SME development. We have lots of money. I know it's controversial. Some people don't like it when I say it, but I'm going to be brave, sister to sister. There is money, so much money. There is money sitting looking for qualifying entrepreneurs, and they say they can't find them. There is money going back into government money every year because it's not actually committed to any small business. There's the SA SME fund that raised, I can't remember how much, I think 1 point something billion from corporate. More than half of those funds remain undeployed because there's a tag on that half of the money saying it must go to black business. How? IDC at some point was turning down more than 80% of applications that they received. How? Why? We don't have a money problem. I personally believe what we have is an issue with risk appetite. Sometimes I find that the people who are supposed to be taking risk with the money, not talking to my Masisizane friends, who are supposed to be taking risk with the money are giving you terms just like a bank. I've read some contracts from DFIs, and I'm just like, I'm better off going to a bank here. There's a risk appetite issue that needs to be fixed, and it's early on in the funding game, and it just is reality. But we don't have a funding problem. Because if I look at effectively fundraising raised by startups on the African continent, just sharing these numbers are in US dollars, right? Lots of money going to logistics, transport, fintech, energy, water, agri-food, and some other sectors. If I look at last year, 2023 on the left, as well as the first half of this year, money that has been raised by startups on the continent, and this is not even all the bubbles of types of funding that I mentioned earlier. This is predominantly venture capital fund. So of all the bubbles I showed you, this is one bubble of money, and we say there isn't enough money, okay? There is money. The question is, are you a fit for the money? Okay, are you clear what money you need? Are you knocking on the right door for the money you need? And do you have the stuff that unlocks the money, the being ready for funding, right? And I just think that's an important thing to self-reflect on, because if you don't, you'll lose it. Then when we talk about support, it's also like a love-hate of mine, and the only advice I can give entrepreneurs is be clear on what type of support you need. Sometimes people sign up for programs where I'm just like, is that what your business needed? Or was that actually a waste of time and a distraction from building your business? If you're signing up for a ESD program and your need is actually access to market, it doesn't always work. Right? And there's so many players, that's the challenge. This is a very old assessment, but I don't want to go into specifics. I just want to show you how many people are doing stuff in the SME ecosystem, and this is outdated, so that means there's probably another 50 more, right? There's people doing networking and pipeline, giving you pipeline access. There's people who are in educational institutions doing R&D and showing off with private institutions. Great. There's incubators and accelerators. There is a difference between these two things. An incubator is not equal to an accelerator. And if you have done an incubator, you shouldn't need to do an incubator 5 more times. You should be able to walk out, grow your business, and then come back and go into an accelerator to scale it. Right? There are those. There's funding and support available. Then there is kind of public sector, private sector, and there is entrepreneurship and kind of entrepreneurship development capabilities. If you are not clear where you are playing in this ecosystem, like I said, you will be busy. If you are not clear what support it is you need, you will be busy. And the only guidance I can give you from a support perspective is for funding and for support. Funding is, what stage is your business? Remember I said I hate SME, the term? I'm more interested in what stage is your business. Are you at idea stage? If you're at idea stage, getting into an incubator may be useful. Basically, your funding options are friends, family, and fools, crowdsourcing, angel investors. If you're at idea stage and seed stage, then you need to make sure you've got a proof of concept, you've got a minimum viable product, and you've actually got market validation that this is a product that the market wants. If you're at startup phase, now you're scaling, what do you have? You can show sales. You are post-revenue, maybe not profit, but you're post-revenue. You can show that you've got a scalable business model, and you know that you have a team. Did you hear that? Team. Nicolette was saying earlier, you're just self-employed. Then idea seed stage, né? And then if there's a team, we're moving into startup stage. If we're at startup stage, where are we getting our money? Angel investors, venture capital funds, government grants, and incubators. Then early stage growth. There, you've actually got a consistent revenue number. We can bet on you now, right? And you've actually got an expanding customer base, and you know how to make it scale without you sitting behind every single call that comes in at the call center. If that's you, then your money's coming from venture capital, private equity, commercial banks, and DFIs. Next one, expansion. I now own the market, praise the Lord. I have diversified revenue streams in my business, and I have a strong management team. Then I'm getting my money from private equity, mezzanine funding, which is more complex funding. Where in the stages are you at? More than saying you're an SME, what stage is your business at? And which doors should you then be knocking on? Please don't come knocking at the wrong door. You're wasting your time and theirs. From a support perspective, what do I need support for? Do I need support in ideation? Do I need to figure out if this idea is viable or whether to ditch it? Sometimes the best advice you'll get is being told to ditch an idea before it costs you lots of money. I know it sounds terrible when your dream is shattered, but they'll save you lots of money. If you're at idea stage, then go to an incubator, go to an accelerator, go to an entrepreneurship development program, work in co-spaces and see what you can pick up there. If I'm now at the point where I've got something and I need business development and sales, then there's specific places you go for that. If I need access to market, then I am going to like supplier development programs. Remember I said supplier development programs here, very specific. You are a supplier, you're trying to grow in how much you participate in the supply chain. And then I'm going to procurement opportunities with government and private sector. I'm looking at export programs, I'm looking at e-commerce platforms. But if you're looking for market access at a shared working space, just mismatch, right? If you're looking for finance, then you should be talking to funders and know which type of funding you're after. If you're looking for finance and you've signed up for an ESD program, I'm just not sure the return on investment on time investment is there, if all you needed was the funding. And if you're looking for an enabling environment and policy changes, then there's places like a Simodisa, Small Business Act, the BEE forums, and so on, and industry associations that you want to be part of. Be clear in your intention and what you need. If not, you will literally spend years building a business and never get anywhere because there's so much chaos. We're not very well organized in the sector. There's so much chaos, and as an entrepreneur, you need to be clear what your business is, what your game plan is, and therefore what funding and what support you need, and those are the doors you go knock on. You don't knock on every door. There's too many doors. You'll never finish them, and the business won't survive, and you'll starve, because, hello, such is an entrepreneurship life. I hope that this has been helpful. Like I said, absolutely happy for the slides to be distributed. But again, I say, build a business that's going to scale. Maybe not on day one, but always have a vision for how it scales. Make sure you're participating in markets that are growing. Do not bet against technology. You will come out last, regardless of what industry your business is in. Understand who the funders are and what type of funding you need. And be cherry picking what type of funding you need and when, because the best funding is sales. The last piece is there's lots of support available. Be clear what support your business and you as an entrepreneur need, and cherry pick the support that you sign up for. Otherwise, you'll lose valuable time within scaling your business. And then persistence, because you're not a sane person. You've decided to become an entrepreneur. There's easier ways to make money, so you might as well persist and make sure you succeed at this thing, because we need you to succeed at this thing as a country from a growth perspective. And good luck. Be bold, especially as women. Be bold, don't make excuses for yourself. Don't make excuses for other people. Be bold, show up, own the space, and make tons of money. Unapologetically, importantly. Thank you.